Hello everybody, welcome to the 5 Minutes PM podcast. Today I'd like to continue the series about business case. If you recall last week, I started discussing what is a business case. I said business case is not an opportunity statement. Remember, opportunity statement is when I envision the future but I don't talk how do I plan to get there. I said also that business case is not business plan. Business plan is a long, much heavier, much more structured set of information with a much more long-term perspective. So what is a business case? Just to recall, business case, it's a way that you use, a communication tool that you use to sell the idea of your project. I said that the business case, it's a basic 7-step process. Last week I explained it. Identification of the problem. Step number 1. You need to understand what is your problem. And you need to express in a very clear and compelling way. The second step, it's about identify alternatives. Remember, do not limit your mindset. Do nothing is an option. You need to generate ideas, and at this time you also start selecting the ones you want to move forward. You don't move forward with 100 ideas, but you move forward with 2, 3, 4 ideas. The third step, gathering data and estimating time frame. What do? It's basically a research step. You do a research of each of your ideas and try to get financial data, timelines, risk data. So you try to understand more how that idea can be implemented. It's not an implementation plan, but it's the information, historical information, market information. This is the time that you may look for a supplier to understand. So you get all this data. On the fourth step is the time that you start analyzing that data. You start trying to create a common areas to compare different ideas. So you try to analyze. This idea is very good on this. This idea is not so good on that. So it's the time that you use maybe a SWOT analysis. Maybe you use fishbone to understand how this address the cause effect relationship. So this is the time that you analyze the data to become more comfortable to do the selection. And the selection is the step number 5. So it's the time that you choose a solution. You can use several types of decision-making process, but the most common is the use of point scale, or the AHP. Point scales, it's you give rating for each idea, and then you try to analyze and you try to calculate the sum of points of each alternative on each criteria you want to select. But the best one, of course, I'm a little bit biased here because I love AHP, but what you can do, you can compare 2 different alternatives in different sets of criteria using the multi-criteria process, the analytical hierarchy process. And this is a quite solid, it's a quite reliable. If you have 4 ideas, it will not be very complex, so it will be quite simple to put in place, and it's very, very valuable to understand how much consensus do you have among your stakeholders. So you can use criteria like cost of implementation, timeline of implementation, risks, quality. So you can have different sets of criteria where you compare the different ideas. As soon as you pick one, it's the time for you to craft and propose an implementation plan. I said about gathering data on step 3 about previous implementations. Now you need to propose an actual implementation. So what is the idea? You put the main milestones, the main responsibles, the main dates, the main costs. How do you plan to implement it? So of course it's not the project plan. You will not be built 1,000 work package WBS. Of course not. It's just a high-level implementation plan to give comfort to the people to understand the way you move forward. You want to move forward. Last but not least, it's communicate the case. So when you build the business case, you need to understand what do they care. What do my audience wants to hear? So it's very, very important that I address which kind of point should I mention on the problem. Should I think on the step analyze data, on the analysis I'm doing? So it's very important. So when you communicate the case, it's a set of a document plus a presentation. So the document will have all these details. And the presentation, my opinion, personal opinion, should be very small, 7 slides, one for each, one for the problem, one for the alternative, one for the data, one for the analysis, one for the solution, and one for the plan. So very simple and straightforward. No detail. It's very important that you present and you give the supporting information. At the end, what do we want? We want to let people, all the stakeholders, comfortable on the way we want to move forward. And then the project charter comes to life. So it's very, very important that you understand. It's a very powerful tool, very simple tool. There are plenty of templates on the web. So make the best use of that to avoid problems and to increase the success rate of your projects. Hope you enjoyed this podcast and see you next week with another 5 Minutes PM podcast.